with a game. We're opening up this show with a brand new game. This is how it works. I have my guest, Elliot Lewis. Wave your hand, Elliot. There he is. And Jesper Johansson. These are our contestants that are playing. The topic is hacking distractions. So what's going to happen is they're going to have exactly 1 minute ping-ponging back and forth to come up with as many distractions as they possibly can that security people face. And they can't repeat distractions between each other. And if one of them can't go the distance for the full minute, then the other one wins. Are you guys ready? Elliot, Jesper?
Do this. All right.
All right.
Ready.
Get ready. Here we go.
Who starts?
Elliot.
Go, Elliot.
Users are a terrible distraction to cybersecurity.
All right. Jesper.
Elliot is a terrible distraction for me.
Vendor salespeople are a terrible distraction to cybersecurity.
Jesper.
Lack of coffee has a detrimental impact on our ability to respond.
All right. Any serious ones? Elliot.
Yes, here's a very serious one. Press headlines when the board of directors reads them.
Ooh, ouch. Jesper.
I was going to say Brian Krebs, but I think Elliot just picked that.
Ooh, damn.
No, I'm going to count Brian Krebs. Go ahead, Elliot, quick.
That's a shot. Okay, making all these panes of glass provide actual usable intel is a huge distraction.
Ooh, good one. Jesper.
All right, I'll go back to not serious. Vice presidents who want to know what the heck is going on.
5 seconds.
Vendors not keeping their products properly safe for our use when we're trying to use them.
Excuse me, hold on, I got to reset this. Andrew, who won?
Well, Elliot has 5 and Jesper has 4, but that's because the buzzer ended before Jesper could get his last answer in.
I didn't even get to
We're calling Elliot the winner here.
I didn't even get to auditors and regulators. What the heck?
Auditors and regulators? Anyone? Was there one you wanted to add, Jesper?
Oh, I was going to say NIST cybersecurity framework, but
there you go.
I think we just did both.
Yeah, that was one for both of us right there. Absolutely.
All right, let's hear the opening music.
Welcome, everybody. The CISO series video chat is ready to begin.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the CISO series video chat. Topic is hacking distractions. Let me go through all that. That's our new opener, by the way. And we've got a lot of new stuff on today's episode, so I hope you're excited about it, especially the regulars who come again and again and again, and I appreciate it. So our topic today is hacking distractions, an hour of critical thinking of what we should stop paying attention to in security. All right, our guests are Elliot Lewis, who you just saw, CEO of Bybee Data, and Jesper Johansson, who is a security professional and author. Our sponsor today, and they've done a bunch of these, and they've been a great sponsor of the CISO series, Bybee Data. Couldn't be more happy to have you back again, Bybee Data. Thank you. All right. 5 different ways you can participate. Those of you who've been here before, you know that you can participate in the chat room. You can submit bad ideas. So bad ideas on hacking distractions. Join us on video by just typing in "bring me on," and Andrew will try to bring as many of you on as possible. Go ahead, ask a question if you got a question, and vote for your favorite question as well. So today's schedule, it's going to be a little different. You saw the speed round, right? Next, your questions. You get your questions in on hacking distractions. And then at 20 minutes past the hour, we'll put the poll live like we normally do of your best bad ideas. I actually didn't write throw in your bad ideas. Yes, well, we want your bad ideas as well. But also at 20 minutes, we're going to switch. So we want, for the first 20 minutes, we want your bad ideas on the topic. But at 20 minutes to 30 minutes, we want to know what is your best strategy for hacking distractions. At 30 minutes past the hour, we're going to play the Department of Yes, and this is going to be key. And I want to know the people who pick those winning ones, the ones that get voted up the most for the best bad ideas, because at 40 minutes past the hour, I want both of those people to come on, and we're going to do a best bad idea contender face-off. I want those contenders of the 2 bad ideas to come on and argue why their bad ideas are the worst, and Jesper and Elliot will then vote on which one they like the best or which one they do agree is the worst. And last questions and final advice. And then finally, we're going to go into our icebreaker. And again, if you've never done our icebreaker before, it is a ton of fun. It's essentially cybersecurity speed dating, 5 one-on-one meetings with another cyber professional for 5 minutes each. You meet a lot of cool people. Next Friday, our video chat is Hacking the Encryption Fallacy, an hour of critical thinking on where encryption fails and how to keep data protected continuously. Guess what? There's a link at the very bottom of the screen to register for that. So please do that. If you click on it, it will not take you out of this video chat at all. It will keep you in the video chat. You can just register for that while you're still here as well. And then lastly, as I said, stick around for our icebreaker. It is a ton of fun. I want you there. All right. Whew, I got all that out. All right. I'm going to just ask you guys, of all those bad ideas that that we just talked about at the beginning of the show, which one do you think is the most dangerous, Elliot? It may be one you didn't mention yet.
Well, I don't know. Jesper's idea on the distraction is probably the most dangerous out of that one. The most dangerous distraction in my experience, honestly, is that last one he and I both said, regulators and auditors. And it's not that they're doing bad things. It's just like while we're trying to satisfy that, it's a distraction from actually doing the job, right? Yeah. And I think that it's anything that takes your focus away from the current threat vectors is always a distraction.
That's a good way of just sort of summarizing the headline for this discussion. Is if I'm not paying attention to threat vectors, I've got problems.
Yeah,
Jesper, what do you think?
I actually think regulators and regulations and so on have a place. They have a role to play.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I think the problem becomes when one of two things happen, and often it's the same thing. The first one is the regulation requires you to do something that doesn't actually make sense from a security perspective. My absolute favorite is the PCI requirement that you have to change your password every 60 days. That reduces security, does not actually increase security. Mm-hmm. And the second one is when, like Elliot said, you spend so much time documenting the regulation and the requirements for the regulation that you don't actually get time to solve the real problems, right?
That's it.
That's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Good.
Completely agree.
Right. What have you done to manage distractions? Because, I mean, first of all, do you acknowledge it, go, team, these are distractions. We can't let them do essentially what they're doing to us. I mean, do you do a very sort of forceful acknowledgement of it? And are there maybe, let's play off the unique distractions that security people deal with. I'll start with you, Elliot.
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever I'm playing the CISO role or advising CISOs and working with them, the first thing I try to do is get them out of reactive snapshot static mode of thinking.
Right.
Because if you're stuck in, this is what we found 3 months ago from a 4-month study from this third party that's doing all these checkboxes and stuff, I guarantee you, whatever you've done, if you even made your business run or grow or do anything new in the last 2 quarters that passed that report, you're now distracted about what was versus what is. Mm-hmm. And I try to always shift every CISO I work with and have the discussions with them is go to live and focused living threat modeling and threat vectoring. Don't go to static snapshots because that turns into a distraction in itself.
Good point. How are you doing sort of actively recognizing and sort of communicating to people that you work with, Jesper, on distractions that specifically security people are facing?
I think the biggest thing there is making sure that you understand the priorities, right? Mm-hmm. You don't get to choose doing certain things. Certain things are just going to be required. Like you can't. Well,
this goes back to the compliance and regulation.
Exactly. You can't choose to not do those, right? That is not an option. So what you need to do is number one, make sure we build proper relationships, right? And actually have conversations with them. The second is, I think there's 2 words that we all need to learn, and those are compensating controls.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
A lot of times we see things that are required, but they're trying to achieve an objective that may be better achieved in a different way. And if we have a good relationship and if we work on the right priorities, we may be able to argue compensating controls and then can actually achieve a better outcome than what we could if we were to do simply what the words of the regulation say. So,
Elliot, you mentioned about stop looking at static. Is there something actively, and pick your time period, it could be since last year, since 5 years ago, whatever, something that you're like, oh, we're no longer doing that because that's a waste of our time. What would you say to that?
In the last year, I think a lot of things, it's not that it's no longer we're doing that, it's a waste of our time. I think that what people have done in the last year are actually focusing on what they thought their plan was. This has been a very interesting year for everybody, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
All new changes, all new controls. I think the big thing that I've seen for people being distracted on how to do their security strategy in today's day and age is stop assuming what you were doing is what you're going to do now or have been doing for the last 6 to 9 months. If you continue to use all of your security architecture, your systems, your controls, and you assume that you're still safe, but you've adjusted all of your business operations to fit whatever scenario you have, and they are not just going to go away. There's going to be some sort of, composite of what we had a year ago to what we have now to where we're going forward. If you're still working on the same security strategies, architectures, vendors, solution sets, and haven't even started revisiting them, you're probably working on an old system that's already compromised. It's just a matter of physics. That's
a good point. Jesper, what would your answer to that is? What you're doing now, or people you're working with, what they're doing now, like you stopped doing something that you were doing in the past?
I think the biggest thing to consider there is, we go to conferences. One of my distractions that I had was the RSA security conference, but it's really the vendor floor, right?
Say nothing, act casual.
Yeah, exactly. You walk down the vendor floor, and there's at this point I think 9,000 vendors or something that all have like this blinky box that's going to solve all the APTs, right? And if you're running a whole bunch of Ubuntu 11 servers that haven't been rebooted for 7 years, you don't need the blinking box. That's not your problem, right? You don't need yet another console to tell you that there's some alarm over here. You need to start patching your stuff, right? So much of security is about going back to the basics of reduce the signal to noise ratio so that you can actually tell when bad things happen in your environment. And we spend too much time focusing on trying to bring in things that will detect bad things in the mass of just noise.
I just want to say something real quick, David. Talk about a perfect timing, distractions. I am here, remote office, in my home office, and the gardener is about to walk by this window and cause a massive distraction, and I can't find the mute button, so I'm just letting you know. There it is right there, people. Live in action, perfect example. Enjoy your meal. So
it'll be okay. Jesper, I want to go back to you commented, but I think a lot of this, and I want to talk about sort of the setup versus the reaction isn't it sometimes the laziness or the let's just go with the default setting in the setup that causes the too much output in the sort of the reaction, if you will. And if there was more front end time spent, I mean, we talk about this in software development as well. Is there more sort of concerted effort being put on the front end rather than dealing with it on the back end? Jesper?
I think there is some element of that, but I think it's what causes the distraction is that it's easier to show to, and this is why VPs is kind of a problem, having been one especially. It's easy to show them that you're doing stuff when it's, I brought in this vendor and we're building up this console, and now my SecOps folks have 7 consoles that they're looking at. Right. And that shows that you're doing stuff, whereas patching your fleet is harder for people to demonstrate as being something you're showing, right? It's harder to justify that as achieving the mission, if you will, right?
Hey, I'm sorry, quick call out to Mike Wilkes. I send you a text. If you want to actually come on, you have 2 really good questions. I'd love it if you would come on and ask one or both of them for that matter, if you want to. So just say, bring me on if you'd like to do that. And we are, by the way, let me just also mention, if you haven't done it.
Send them in. We need your bad ideas.
We do want your bad ideas. A lot have come in. They're really good. So many so far that I've seen. So be ready to bring me on. All right, bring Mike Wilkes on. We'll bring him on, and he'll ask one or both of his questions. They were both really good ones. I liked them. One had to do with 0-day exploits, and also priority 1, anything for that matter. But I want Mike to answer it. So yes, Andrew, if you are bringing in Mike, please do that. Let me also remind everybody, please click on the link below to register for the video chat that is going to be happening next Friday. The topic is hacking the encryption fallacy. We have Mike Wilkes, who's a CISO over at Security Scorecard. Mike, ask either of your questions or both. Let's start with one at a time.
Yeah, how many prior ones per quarter, right? The distraction of context switching and just too many projects, too many initiatives, try to move 100 things one unit rather than, 10 things, 10 units, or one thing, 100 units.
Okay, so I've been through that one quite a bit. So I always had a policy.
Actually, can I pause your business? You had to deal with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can look at this from the point of running a major company as a CISO, running product lines, running my own company as a cybersecurity startup. One of the things that I always work with is a net zero policy. Okay, if you're going to tell me that you have a new priority one, what became priority two? What fell off the list? You can't have everything be a priority one. And I lay that on my business people, on my my IT leaders, on my heads of my departments here. Now, if we have to add in, if you're telling me that we have more than one set of priorities, that something got added in, that means that I have to do incremental headcount, incremental time, incremental services to get it back to a net zero in a certain period of time. If we can't do that, then we're not making the right choices. You can't have constant change without constant revision.
So you've actually been on the other side of that discussion. You've actually
what was the
You've actually been on the other side of that that statement. Like we have to have a zero sum. You've actually made it to the promised land.
It's a mantra. It's a mantra that you strive for, and I will tell you that it leads to constantly looking at your evolution, constantly understanding what your priorities are, and if they're going to shift, why, where, how, and how are you going to make sure you don't lose the major targets, right? If you can't keep a focus on your major targets and understand that something's not dropping off the floor, or you're causing such randomization that you lose focus on getting what you had to get done for business reasons or security reasons, you've missed. So you got to do, it's net zero is a method leading to an evolving and constant operation. I always use 3 words usually: flexibility, nimbleness, and elasticity. You have to have those to actually have a successful business, but you also have to have the guardrails, and those guardrails are net zero.
Yeah, I think it's not possible if only one person thinks that way.
I'm not sure where
Jesper, if everyone thinks that way, it's helpful.
Yeah.
Your video dropped out.
Your video's off, Jesper.
Refresh your browser.
So when you talk about, when you're doing the top-down mandates and models, if you can't, one of the things you have to do is understand that you have to set the tone and work that way and then drive the business that way. It's even harder when your job is to be the security executive as opposed to the business leader or the CIO or the board of directors, because now you're not just trying to keep everything moving. You really don't control what is top priority. So you have to control what net zero looks like. And to that point, one of the things, and I saw this in the comment on the side a few moments ago, and I'm a big proponent of this, one of the biggest things you can do is trim the fat. If you have grown your business in any given way, if you have made new systems, new revenue lines, new operations in any way in that business, you have evolved the business and the data flows in some way, shape, or form. If you have not revisited and kept live your security posture, your threat posture, your mitigation effectiveness modeling, if you haven't done that, then how did you grow the business and keep the place safe? One goes with the other, right? Mm-hmm. So if you've kept it static on security, I'm assuming you've done no business modeling, no revenue growth, and no new revenue flows in the business or new customers. That's the only way to keep it static.
All right. While we're having Jesper to come on, ask your second question about the 0 days as well.
Yeah, my second question was, everyone, I think, is referring to the movie Up, right? Where, you have these dogs and then you go, squirrel!
You're back, right? Jesper.
Yeah.
And so is a 0 day the InfoSec squirrel, right? Do we spend too much time going after the shiny thing and it's so sexy and cool, it's in the news, and we don't do the basic hygiene every day because we keep going 0 day?
Well, isn't the Black Hat conference literally that? Isn't that
Well, it's how
the
they,
entire conference?
it's how they drive and strive, right?
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the thing and I said this before at the very beginning, what's a distraction? Headlines read by the board of directors, right?
Mhm.
And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's not that they're wrong not to pay attention to it. The point is, know how it applies to what you're doing. Is this truly something you need to pay attention to? Is this a knee-jerk reaction? Or as Jesper said very well earlier, compensating controls and defense in depth, right? You don't have to react to every day zero if you have a compensating control model.
All right.
Go ahead,
By the
Jeff.
way, our poll is up.
Is
Everyone
it
vote
something
for your
that is
favorite bad
likely going
ideas.
to
Go
be
ahead.
your
I'm sorry,
biggest
Jesper.
problem?
Say that again, Jesper?
Yeah, is it something that's actually going to be
Right.
actually going to be your biggest problem?
Right.
The 0
I mean,
days,
it's like
right?
it may be the biggest
we see
headline
0 days
Yeah.
all the time.
every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, we've got a 0 day in SQL Server.
Or Spectre and Meltdown came
That's
back, for
a problem
example, right?
if you have SQL Server
These
close to the internet.
The side cache loading
Yeah.
vulnerabilities have come back, right? And so it was 2018 when we first learned about speculative execution in the chips, and we had to solve it in software. It took 20-30% of our workload sometimes to do all those extra kernel call checks, right? But is it really something that someone's actively exploiting versus just a sexy new vulnerability?
Well, more so than that. So it's interesting because this type of that type of problem is actually something that we've been discussing for many years, but it's just been very, very hard to exploit. Here's the thing, though: if I can do that type of side channel execution on your computer, I'm running code on your computer already.
Yeah.
There are definitely situations where that's a real problem. But it's not going to be something that's going to stop the vast majority of companies. Or at least it shouldn't stop them from doing the rest of the things that they already had planned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have the same perspective on non-running kernels, right? If someone can decide what kernel is going to load on my machine, the vulnerabilities on that kernel don't matter, right? They've already owned your machine.
And I look at this I've sat in the seat of CISO for a company. I've also sat in the seat for Microsoft and Cisco and Dell. And now I'm running my own software company, right, in Kiavi, and I'm the CEO and chief architect. I will tell you that sitting on all different sides of that seat, you get different perspectives. Day zeros are things that people running a company's security get hit with, and how elastic, flexible, and nimble were you in your security posture to help do compensating controls, block controls, understand how to best deal with that issue while that vendor is now trying to solve the day zero, while the press is trying to escalate it, while the hacking community is trying to exploit it, and how you're dealing with that entire full frame, and what is your strategy around that. It's not, sometimes winning the battle is not killing any other entity. Sometimes winning the battle is just surviving and being the last one standing, right? So you have to take your philosophy of where is your position and your optics and your frame about how you're going to deal with this given situation. And when you're a software vendor, any of our vendors, I'm a vendor now, we all make software. One of the things that I talk to my dev team about is you don't have to solve every bug if you have compensating controls and architectures that make sure that we are protecting our clients and letting the thing run right. So when you say there's a day zero in our bugs and our controls, that is on us to solve, not for the CISO sitting in the seat to solve. Mm-hmm. That is for us to do the right thing and make sure that day zeros, we have a plan to deal with them effectively and cleanly, not a problem for our customers to deal with. And I see so many times where the vendors they leave it in the customer's hands to deal with something that the vendor has to own. We're the software developers.
Mm-hmm. All right. We're just going to remind everybody we have 6 minutes before we're going to be playing actually Department of Yes. But one of the things I wanted to switch is we're still getting bad ideas, which is good, which by the way, you're still entered to win an awesome
so many bad ideas for
CISO Series Fleet. And by the way, there are some really good ones in there as well. Please read through them all because they're good, bad ones. But I want your good strategies now. It's time for your good strategies. What is your strategy for dealing with distractions? And it can be any kind of distraction, one we talked about, one we have not talked about. All right. So I don't know if we got this answer from you, Jesper. Hold it. And correct me if I'm wrong, regarding, excuse me, you started to answer the question regarding what you're doing now for that you weren't doing before. Can you, I'm sorry, elaborate on that? Go back to that.
What I'm doing now that I'm not doing before, I think the biggest thing is be very, very selective with the third-party products that you're using. And that actually goes for both security as well as beyond security, right? If you actually do an inventory for any reasonable size company on the number of third-party products you're using, if you are less than 200, I would be surprised, right? And that is an enormous distraction, and a lot of times there's duplication between various things, right? It's not just the money that you spend on those products, it's really the money and the time that you're spending using all those different products, right?
Elliot, I'm sorry, I want to set you up purposely for what you're doing with Kiavi data, because one of the things that you keep hammering again and again and again, and I'm going to I'm going to be repeating your mantra because I've heard it and I'm so on board with this, is the one thing that stayed consistent through the decades and decades of cybersecurity we've been dealing with is data. That is the one thing that is consistent. There's a lot of other stuff that's changed, but the data has stuck around, and the data is the most valuable thing. So I got to assume that this hyper focus on data is where we need to be at, because I'm sorry, we can talk about firewalls till we're blue in the face and micro segmentation and God knows what else that isn't, and roles, which by the way, this is all important. There's importance here, but it's like you have to start at the core and then work out, if you will. Explain.
So this is something that we talk to our customers and the analyst community all the time about. Why did Kiavi go in the direction they did, and what have we done as a technology set? And it really boils down to, and this is not a knock on any vendors outside of my partner vendors and stuff. There are tons of great solution sets. They're doing a good job, right? But the cybersecurity market has a few things to it. One, before, now, and moving forward, there's only one common denominator across all of IT. That's data itself and the people that use it. Everything else is evolving and morphing around at every solution, every architecture, every platform. Data is the only thing that's consistent. Then you take a look at the cyber market, and it's based on one premise. Data can't protect itself. Therefore, you've got two sets of technology. One set is designed to try to keep data secure: identity, encryption, device management, firewalls, infrastructure, everything you're thinking about, all these different things. And they're trying to keep that data secure because it can't protect itself. The other half of the cyber market is threat management, forensics, tracking, logging, all the things to chase after that data when the first half of the technology couldn't contain it. And why? Because business is using data. They're sharing data. That's what data is designed to be done. So what Kiavi's done, we've taken, and this goes down to one of the things Jesper just said, and I saw this also in the chat earlier. What's the one thing I think that everybody should be doing personally? In this day and age of innovation, in this day and age of changing platforms and operations and controls and remote workforce and modeling and everything else, trim the fat. Focus on the common denominators you know are running your business. And one of them is, if you're constantly chasing after data that keeps leaking, go back to what you were doing and figure out how to do that better. And that's part of what Kiavi's done, because we made data self-protecting, self-aware, and intelligent so they could protect itself out in the wild and protect itself in perpetuity under your command. That's the entire premise, because it's the one common denominator. That's how we're helping.
Are you guys familiar with, I think it's called the 5 whys philosophy, the Japanese philosophy of like constantly asking the question of why to get to the root cause of what's happening?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm always a big fan of this because it's an exercise we rarely do to really force yourself to go in deep, because we usually stop at 1, maybe 2, but we don't keep going down to find the root cause. Yeah. And have you ever done this exercise? And the exercise actually works really well when you get attacked, like, why did this happen? And going through the multiple levels down.
You see, and this is where we get into consulting operations and everything else, where we talk to our customers, CISOs, analysts. It's always stop answering the question that was asked, answer the question that should have been asked, and then answer the question that should have been asked before that one. Keep diving down. The most obvious answer, why did we get hacked? I can answer that question, but what was the root cause? Why? What did we change? What exposed that data? What new things did we do? That's the real questions you need to think about for strategy, not tactics.
By the way, I should just mention
the question of why we got hacked is only. I was going to say the question of why we got hacked is only relevant insofar as that it sets up the other questions that you need to be asking afterward. Right?
Thank you.
That's the only relevance of that question. It gives you the next set of whys to ask. The problem I've seen with the 5 whys is you get people who interpret 5 whys as asking 5 questions that are completely unrelated. They're not useful unless you actually do them as a chain, right?
Right.
By the way, hold on, everyone. Listen to this.
Uh-oh.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. That is the signal. And I would just want to say there are some really good bad ideas here. And I also want to say, I can't believe it took us, we've been doing this for a full year, and it took us a full year. It goes, hey, maybe we should ask the chat room for some good ideas. Because we've been for a year asking for
But there's so many better bad ideas.
But as I'm seeing right now, when you ask them for some good ideas, we're actually getting some good ideas. So thank you. Actually, it took me a year to figure that out. Brilliant, Dave. Way to go. All right, here we go. Elliot, I'm going to make you answer this first. And by the way, just so everyone knows, Jesper is this. We were having this problem in the green room before. Jesper is on an ever so slight delay. So if you see him answering 2 to 3 seconds later, just so you know, that's what's going on. He's on a slight delay from us right now. All right, Elliot, I'm going to make you answer this one. I remember you're playing the Department of Yes. You have to explain why this is a great idea for hacking distractions.
Great idea.
Oh, and here's the other thing. I'm sorry, I have to explain to everyone else. Whoever sent this in, speak up, because I want you to come on camera in about 10 minutes to defend why your bad idea is such a great bad idea. All right, Elliot, here we go. Send email to the whole organization asking for everyone's input on your security alerts, vulnerability scans, and risk findings, remediation items, and then for their input on the next step. So everyone adds to this for the next step.
Great idea. That's a fantastic idea.
Okay.
Because what that does, it distracts all the business leaders, it distracts all the managers, it distracts all the auditors and regulatory compliance guys. It distracts everybody that's trying to, get their air out and their voice in while you actually solve the problem, get it done. And by the time they get back to the analysis, it's already passed and gone. You're 3 steps ahead because you just got all this free time ahead of you. I love that idea.
It's crowdsourcing the information. I think it's good too.
It's also crowdsourcing distracting. I love that.
Crowdsourcing distraction. Even better. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Jesper, you heard that? Are you ready to answer this one? Can you handle it? All right. Why is this such a great idea? You're for the Department of Yes. Explain.
Because we know that if one head is good, 2 heads are better, right? So add more heads and we're going to come up with the way best ideas for how to do this. It's as simple as that.
I'm going to give you a yes, but you were pretty much just copied Elliot's answer. All right. So who gave that one? I don't know. I didn't see who gave that one. Who was that? I couldn't see. Whose bad idea was that? Please speak up. I want to know whose bad idea that was. All right. Second bad idea coming in. I didn't even look here. Hold on. Let me scroll down to here. That one's way too long for me to spit that one out. All right. This one's an easy one for you guys to handle. Elliot, I'm going back to you here.
Okay.
This is a simple one, and you've heard this one probably before. Say yes to every sales pitch email from a cybersecurity vendor. Why is that a great idea? And don't be facetious. I want to know an answer here.
Say yes to every salesperson.
It's just a pitch. Doesn't mean you have to buy the product. It's just you're saying yes.
Say yes to
pitch.
Seeing every single pitch and giving them time and everything else. Why this is a good idea? Well, it's a good idea because again, if you're having your team and your staff and your business leaders having to vet every single solution, whatever what it is out the door, I can have my actual team, my real team going out there fixing problems where everybody's distracted and not messing them up and locking them down. By the time they get back to their desk from the meeting room, everything's finished. I love distracting the overall people who are interested in listening to vendor pitches rather than us doing the work.
You know, Jesper's just as confused by that answer as I am. So,
all
right. So the
I
answer.
just think you gave the same answer to the previous question.
All
Well,
right,
it
Jesper.
kind of was.
Why do you want to take every single vendor pitch meeting, vendor pitch request? Why are you doing it?
It's really simple. It's really simple why you want to take this, right? Because
Tchotchke.
all of the vendors give out AirPods for you to listen
Tchotchke.
to the pitch. You collect them all, and then you sell them on Craigslist. And now you've funded your security strategy for next year.
All right, I'm giving that to
All
you.
about the merch. That's a good idea. Yeah. Hadn't thought about it.
We've got a winner.
Good job. All right. So I'm just confirming that Matthew Bybee and Matthew Thompson were the two submitters of those two bad ideas. All right. So I just want you two to be available in 5 minutes to come back on and defend your bad ideas and why they're so bad and what you thought of their answers as well. So come back in 5 minutes. Let's go back to the questions right now. Here, we've been talking about this for the entire video chat. Comes from Matthew Thompson. How do you handle the distractions from your audit, vulnerability scanning, penetration test reports when you have compensating controls to address many of them? So you've got these reports coming in, but I also have to deal with the controls of them, or I do have controls of them that are addressing them. Where am I balancing this, I guess? I'll start with you, Jesper, actually. Let me start with Jesper.
How are you balancing these? So, I mean, it comes down to prioritizing. It comes down to figuring out what is it that's actually the real problem. I think we need a way to rate things, okay? Mm-hmm. And I actually like CVSS a lot. I think it's a great way to do this because it's well understood, it's simple, it's easy to understand, but it isn't useful unless you can adjust the scores for local factors. Mm-hmm. So get the raw scores and then do the adjustment for local factors, and that gives you a much better way to prioritize things.
All right. Elliot, your answer.
You know, I look at this, I've always looked at this in a different kind of light. The reports, the regulatory checkboxes, the auditors, they're doing their job. And these things were made and designed for a reason, but they aren't the end game. They should be a byproduct of what you're doing. So when I say, for instance, when I look at any given pane of glass or dashboard from any vendor or system or SIM or whatever, my biggest complaint and my biggest peeve has always been, this thing should be telling me something I couldn't figure out on my own. Displaying up numbers and dials and stuff that I could have figured out on my own. I need to, it goes back to our other thing. What was the question or what was the insight that I should have gotten out of this dashboard? And the reports, they come out of this as an after effect. The reports should be automatically populated. They should be plugging into this. But the reports are either a byfactor or an asset that were fed into this. It's not the pane of glass I needed to see. I need to know, what does this mean, not what checkboxes got checked. And that gives me strategy versus tactics when doing this kind of model.
Good point. I want to ask Matthew Bybee's question, and Matthew Bybee and Matthew Thompson. Just get ready. We're going to bring both of you on in just at the after they answer this question. So I referenced this before, but I'd like to know, like, what do you talk to your team members when you say, and this is from Matthew Bybee, what do you tell your teams to do to actually remove distractions? Like this zero-sum game. Like, when people are asking you, like, what do you tell your team? Like, hey, I don't want you, like, tell me the thing you want to take off your plate, or like, what is it you're doing to try to get them to remove their distractions? I'll start with you, Elliot.
I've always used this kind of a term. Before you walk into my office, understand the obvious. If it's obvious, it's not what I need to hear. Mm-hmm. I need to hear things I didn't know. It's always an insight moment. Whenever I tell analysts and everything when they're talking to me, if I don't have this moment of, oh my God, I didn't realize that this changes everything, then you didn't have an insight moment and you just wasted my time. Mm-hmm. I don't need you to bring in the obvious.
That's a good one. Don't bring the obvious. I love that.
Don't bring the obvious. Yeah.
Jesper, what do you do?
Yeah, I think it's two things. Empowerment and clear objectives, right? Mm-hmm. Clear objectives, because make sure that people understand what we consider to be important and what we have prioritized and decided to do. And number two, empower them to drop things on the floor. Make it absolutely clear to everybody in the organization that they can drop things on the floor. If they don't feel comfortable telling somebody to go pound sand, then bring me in and I will help you do it. Right? But we have objectives. There's a reason we have those. If you want to argue about the prioritization of those objectives, come talk to me and we can have that discussion, but don't try to distract my people, right? It's protecting your people.
Yeah.
Is what
Great point. Great point.
All right, let's bring on Matthew Bybee and Matthew Thompson, who are going to defend their horrible ideas, and I hope they're going to have a good job defending them. And this, I think, will be the first time we'll have 5 people on the screen ever.
Oh, now it's getting dangerous. All right.
Yes, we should be. So please, Matthew Bybee and Matthew Thompson. And by the way, if you have not, click the button at the bottom of the screen that says "Join next Friday." Please do that, and to register for next Friday's video chat, because we'd like you there before. It's going to be hacking the encryption fallacy. That has to do with encryption at rest versus encryption being active, and whether you can do that or not. All right. I know we have Matthew Bybee right here, and Matthew Thompson's coming on. Matthew Bybee. Oh, there's Matthew Thompson coming on. Matthew Bybee, which bad idea was yours?
The send email to the whole organization, asking for everybody's opinion.
All right. Elliot, Jesper, you are the judges here. Argue, why is yours the best bad idea? Go for it, Matthew.
Well, I mean, what better way to elicit organizational buy-in for the security program than to ask everybody for their opinions, right? It gives them an opportunity to be actively involved in the process and to show that their opinions may or may not matter.
Making them feel useful for that matter. That's a good point. All right, Matthew Thompson, you send in the vendor one, which I assume was going to come up. Why is yours the best bad idea?
So I'd say, especially because the vendors have to give their pitch based on their tool, you know your environment. So being able to understand what every vendor has to offer, you can then go back to the business and give the best ROI. Like, this is the best vendor. Yeah, we can say that the Gartner Magic Quadrant and all that is really good, but for our organization, this one fits us best. So I can't tell you that unless I've seen the pitch for every vendor.
It's as much as you can see. All right. Elliot, Jesper, you are now the judges. You are essentially the Simon Cowells of America's top bad idea here. What say you, Elliot? Which one do you truly think is the worst?
I think the truly worst idea I got, and this is me speaking as a CEO of a vendor company, is the vendor pitch one. I mean, I'll talk about a distraction of having to take up all of my time listening to a vendor's point of view of what I need to think about my business, my strategy, my operations, when they don't have any clue past their cubicle blindness as to what my problem is. Vendors are tactics that fit into a strategy, not the other way around. So I got to say that's the worst bad idea.
Let me also throw this out to you, Elliot. I think it's worse the other way around, because if all your pitches to everyone say, yes, go ahead and pitch me, yet obviously they all can't potentially be customers because they may not be appropriate or not. So it'd be a giant waste of your time too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a free for all, and it's just I could spend. I actually got pinged when I was a CISO at Merrill Lynch. I got pinged for not being nice enough to vendors. And the reason why I wasn't being nice to vendors is because I had just come out of Microsoft. I took one look at their product and I'm like, yeah, this thing's half baked. You can leave and come back with a real product. And I got pinged and binged on from the up above saying, you need to be nicer to vendors. It was a mind stretch for me in that new role. All right.
You heard Elliot's answer. Jesper, which of the bad ideas do you think is the worst? And did you think that they made good arguments here? Matthew and Matthew.
So I was actually going to go with the vendor one, but since Elliot did that and I'm an official advisor to Elliot, I'm going to go with the other one because I can't agree with Elliot.
That's fair. I get that. It's all. You can't do this.
Hold on, wait. Let me pause right there. You're an advisor to Elliot, and you can't agree with Elliot.
Well, I think that's absolutely appropriate because it's like, look, this is hard to compete with. I understand Jesper's problem, so he's got to find something to add value. See what I'm saying?
Somebody's
There
got
you
to
go.
play devil's advocate.
Someone's
There
got to
you go.
add value here. It's not me.
Yeah,
Someone's got to add value.
All right.
I had a different explanation for this, Elliot, but let's just slide on that one.
All right. So Matthew Bybee, I'm sorry, you say you like Matthew Bybee's, which is getting everyone involved. Explain, Jesper.
I think the reason it is so terrible, and I'm sure that's what Matthew was intending as well, is first of all, you're never going to get anything done, right? Because you've now told everybody that you're going to achieve consensus in security, right? And so now you're never going to get anything completed. You are also inviting civilians to make decisions on things that they don't necessarily understand or have expertise in. The reason they hired you in the first place as the CISO was because you are empowered to make those decisions. Chances are, I mean, in reality, to be honest, chances are if you tried this, you would be fairly short-lived in the first place.
That's a good point. You wouldn't last long with the Matthew Bybee's answer, where the other one would be annoying, but at least you'd survive it.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, Jesper. I'm giving Jesper the win here.
That's perfectly good. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
I had a long-time mentor when I was a very young man in this industry, and when he had a business person come in and say, "Well, you should be doing this, and this," his response in the room was, "Well, that's great. The next time you have a thought, or God help us, worse, an opinion, please keep it to yourself." So,
all right. Let's go back to the question. So, by the way, we just have about 14 minutes left. Everybody, please stick around for our one-on-one meetups at the end. If you haven't come to it, it's a ton of fun. I'm telling you, a lot of people have done business with people they've met during this time, and they've actually hired people during this time. Oh, here, let me also make a pitch for ourselves. We need a new cybersecurity reporter for cybersecurity headline. So if you know anybody or you have any cybersecurity reporting experience yourself, please contact me. We need someone as quickly as possible. All right, this one comes in from Jacob, and it asks, how do you advise companies' leadership to adopt a cybersecurity framework and show them the importance of having a cybersecurity dedicated team? So this is just, I guess, this is more along the lines of companies that don't do any cybersecurity, which sadly there are a lot of them. And also, I think the main need, I will throw this out, the main need for someone dedicated to cybersecurity is all the regulations actually say you need a person dedicated to cybersecurity in the regulation itself. It doesn't say CISO, but it kind of implies CISO. Go ahead, Elliot.
So that's actually two questions in my mind. Let's start off with the framework one. Frameworks are there to give you guardrails and guidelines about different scenarios and controls, but frameworks are also designed to hit the masses. They are a tactical framework to use, and then you need to put your own operations, controls, threat models, and strategies around it. And they should be used appropriately. They are not the end game. They are a guide and a suggestion model. So that's that first thing. The second question of should you have a security team? Absolutely, because your destiny is not controlled by you. Your data is going to all your partners, supply chains, cloud, operations, everything you're doing. If you do not need a security team to make sure that all of your business operations and controls and your ecosystems and partners and everybody you're dealing with around the planet and beyond is not needing a security team oversighting it, you're being a bit naive. Two different points, though.
All right. By the way, and I want your answer to this one as well. By the way, we dropped another poll of your good ideas. Go ahead and vote for your good ideas. We want to know what your favorite good ideas here, and we will publish the best in our highlights post next week as well. Again, took me a year to ask you for your good ideas. Jesper, let's go for you. Again, what should you say? And I loved Elliot's advice. What should you say to the company that does not have someone as a cybersecurity leader and is not using any kind of cybersecurity framework? Like speak to them or talk as you're speaking to them on what you would say.
The way I start that discussion is, what do you have that is actually worth protecting? What are the things that you are protecting? And I'm not asking, I mean, you can go down the route of, are you doing business with consumers in California? And you know what I mean? You can go that route, but it's not really worth it. Is what is it that you have that you want to protect? And how do you know that you're doing it? What happens if you lose it, right? And really interesting point, there's lose it and there's leak it, and those aren't the same thing, right? They're actually different. So you kind of have to ask both of those questions. And what I find is we have one guy in IT, and usually there is only one guy in IT, and that poor, you know what, is now charged with answering all the security questions as well. It's a really lonely job.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's even worse because that job is actually almost a contradiction in terms, right? Their job is to make stuff work. IT is about making technology work and not be in the way. Security is almost exactly the opposite of that, right? I mean, yes, we're going to play department, I guess, but still. So I think it's about what is it that you need to protect, help people understand that, and that they all have something to protect.
All right, let me ask you a question. One of the good ideas that came in and that I loved, and it's one of those sounds awesome in theory. Who's been able to pull it off? And I'm interested to know, have either of you been able to pull this off, or anyone from the chat room speak up? And that is, and it could be a variation of this, by the way, let me say, but the line of it, I remember Google used to announce this sort of, I think it was the 20% or the 10%, like the time off to work on something innovative, or take a Friday or take a day to just do something creative out of the business. Have either of you actually done that, mandated some level? And if you have, or at what level, what has come of it? Jesper, you go first.
Two things. First of all, it wasn't Google's idea. It was 3M pioneered that idea.
Well, I wouldn't say pioneer. I just know Google
used it.
Yeah.
Google does use it, and yes, I've done it because I was at Google. And I think, first of all, there's a big caveat there. 20% does not mean you add 20% more work to people's plate, which is unfortunately how it's often implemented, right?
Right.
You have a 5-day week and then you add 20% to work on something different. That's not how it's supposed to work. Right?
I just want 120% of your time.
So, and this actually goes back to, yeah, exactly. This actually goes back to something I wanted to comment on that Elliot said earlier, which was on the prioritization and how you figure out what you can do. And I think it's incredibly important for us when we look at what we're going to accomplish in the next quarter, the next half, whatever our planning horizon is. Each individual has roughly 2,000 hours of employment a year. That does not mean you get 2,000 hours of productive work out of them.
Right.
You're going to get maybe 1,000 hours of productive work out of them. The rest is lost to Slack or meetings or coffee breaks or whatever.
Not the platform, actually Slack.
If you're going to do a 20% thing, if you're going to do 20%, take another 20% off of that, right? Don't add 20% to it. So I think it is a really useful thing, but I think you want to think about the culture of the company and what it actually means, right? Is the culture of the company such that I can go learn to be a scuba instructor in my 20% time? Or do you want the 20% to be working with some other organization within the company? I think both are equally valid, but it needs to be integrated into the culture of the company and how the company operates for this to be useful. But I think it can be a valid tool properly managed.
And Jesper, I just want to say that you have actually done this when you were at Google. And what was it? And just very quickly in 30 seconds, what was the net effect?
The net effect, to be honest, was for many, many, many people, it was, I would like to see Google do X. So I'm going to take 20% of my goals and go work with some other team to build X. That was effectively what it came down to being. Right?
And that sounds valuable.
Not as much experimentation as what it was. It is super valuable. It's not the way 3M did it. What 3M did was they said you have 20% of your time to go do experimentation. That's how we got Post-it notes. They were a 20% project, right? And it was people being allowed to play with things that weren't on their original plan and their original roadmap. So it's a slight modification to how it's done, but both of those are operating within the culture of the company. And I think both are valuable.
All right. Give me a 30-second answer to this because we need to wrap up the show because we just got about 5 minutes left. Elliot, with regards to 20% thing or some variation, have you done something like that? What's the net value of it? Shoot, give it to me.
Yes, have done it. Actually, running a software company now, that is a lot of what we do. It's more than just getting the current work done. It's innovating on what we're doing, coming up with new ideas, new models, and so on and so forth. But to that point, if you're going to do it, people need to learn from what they did or thought up and come out with it. Not every idea is going to be taken up. Some ideas are going to be thrown on the floor. Some ideas are going to be picked up. Some ideas are going to morph into new ones. But have them participate in that aftermath so that they're learning and enjoying and seeing the value of the 20%. Because if all you did was say, send your stuff into a dark hole, now it's just a waste of time and they're not getting any learning out of it. And the whole thing is creative thought. If you're getting creative thought, you're going to get 5 or 10% of that turns into really cool innovation, maybe 5 to 10%. But that's how we get to that 5 to 10% of cool innovation.
Excellent. All right. I need to wrap up the show. Let me just do a few closing items here. All right. Whoops. All right. Stick around for the icebreaker. It is a lot of fun. Guess what? The link at the very bottom of the screen has changed. You can click on it now. It'll open up another window and get you prepped. You'll need to log in with some type of a Google account, I believe still. They may have changed that. Don't know. But just type your full name in, and then you'll just get matched up randomly with people. And I'll see you there in a second. All right. I want to ask you to tell your friends to join us. It's every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a lot of fun. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. If you didn't click the link at the bottom of the screen, you can always find our upcoming events by just going to CISOseries.com and clicking the register for video chats button. A huge thanks to our sponsor, Kiavi Data. Please, Kiavi Data. They have been awesome sponsors of us. And we are big fans of them as well, on top of it all. Elliot and I have known each other for a long time, and in fact was an extremely strong supporter of the CISO series when I very first launched the concept of it over 3 years ago, actually. Yeah. Do you want to sponsor a video chat? Well, guess what? All you have to do is email me at david@CISOseries.com. We have openings starting in June. We would love to have you on board. All right. We have less than 3 minutes to go. 1 minute from you, Elliot. Any last piece of advice on this or your basic pitch of Kiavi Data? Whatever you'd like to say.
No, absolutely. So we're talking about distractions here. We talked about a lot of things. We talked about trimming the fat, getting on strategy, the 5 whys, everything else. Really comes down to one concept. What is the one common denominator that you're trying to protect? Data itself. What does Kiavi Data do? We have the platform to make all data self-intelligent, self-protecting, and self-aware so that it removes all of that problem and gives you the ability to focus on what do you want your data doing, how it's doing it, where it's doing it, how it's telling you what's happening to it, and being able to protect itself live anywhere, anytime, in perpetuity. That's what we've done. So I hope that helps remove the distractions. Because
and as someone who's actually seen a demo of this product, it's amazingly simple. I was kind of shocked at how simple it is. All right. Thank you very much, Elliot. Jesper, last piece of advice on the distractions.
Yeah, I'm not going to do the vendor pitch, but I am actually going to address a question that somebody did earlier up in the chat, which I thought was really interesting when I mentioned CVSS. A question popped up that said version 2 versus version 3. And I'm going to say it doesn't matter. And here is why it doesn't matter. There are many, many academic papers and books and things like that on how to rate risks. And you can, we've been doing annualized loss expectancy for 2,000 years, right? That's standard actuarial science. And we can do binomial analysis and we can do all these other things. At the end of the day, all of them suffer from 2 things, right? You basically are trying to estimate the likelihood and the impact of something, except it's really hard to estimate the likelihood and it's really hard to estimate the impact. So you've got garbage going in, which means you're going to have garbage going out to a certain extent. And that's true of every single one of these rating schemes. Don't overthink the rating scheme, right? Whether it's CVSS, whether it's annualized loss expectancy, whether it's FAIR, whatever it is, don't overthink it. Don't overspend your time on that. The objective here is to reduce your exposure, to reduce your risk. Don't spend too much time figuring out what exactly the right one is to put at the top of the list. As long as you're moving forward, you're doing pretty well and you're closing things out. So pick something that works, pick something that's simple. You could even have your risk rating scheme be 3 smart people in a room that stick their finger in the air and go, that one. And as long as you're closing risks, you're doing well.
All right. Excellent. We are at the end of the show. Thank you very much. Elliot Lewis, Jesper Johansson, Andrew, who's producing the whole thing. Take us out. We'll see you. Click the link at the bottom of the screen. Join us at the video chat. Click that link.